Hi, welcome to Visual Studio Toolbox. I'm your host, Robert Green, sitting in for Leslie Richardson today. And joining is good friend and friend of the show, Mr. Mads Kristensen. Mads, how are you?
Hello, Robert. I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
We're always happy to have you on the
I'm
show.
I'm always happy to be here.
And my dashboard tells me that we may be having trouble streaming to Twitch. So I hope that's not the case.
All right.
But we'll soldier on.
Yes.
So at the Dev Intersection show that we were just at a couple months ago in beautiful Las Vegas, you did a talk called Get the Most Out of Visual Studio. And I was in it, and about 5 minutes in, I said, you ought to do this on Toolbox, and you kindly agreed to. The basic idea is that Visual Studio being a big bundle of tooling, as much as you think you know about it, and you probably do, there's tons of stuff you probably don't know about it. And you can never see too much. And so you're going to show us a whole bunch of stuff, some of which we know and a bunch of which we've never seen before.
Yeah. I think, we've been really good over the years to talk about like all the tips and tricks and productivity enhancers that we have for like C++ and for .NET, C#, and all those things. But it's very rarely that we talk about, well, what about Visual Studio itself? So the things that are around the code, that is not the code, that is not the typing of the languages and all this sort of stuff. But what about Visual Studio itself, the shell? What can we do there? How can Visual Studio help us in various different situations that we may not take advantage of today or maybe even know about? And so that was kind of the premise of that sort of session at Dev Intersections in Vegas that you were mentioning. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. And like I think this is gonna, we've talked about this for 2 years now through the pandemic, but what can we do, with a hybrid workplace, blah, 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 to make our productivity greater and ourselves more comfortable as we're moving to be in the office and home. Like for me, I'm in the office sometimes and I am at home most of the time, but probably 1 or 2 days a week I go to the office. And so those are two very different situations, right? And I need Visual Studio to be at its best when I'm in the office where I just have a laptop, or when I'm at home where I have a laptop and then I have like a wide, ultra wide monitor.
Right.
And those are two very different situations, like what keyboard and mouse I've got, and do I sit down, do I stand up? It's just different. And so it just so happens to be that Visual Studio has some really cool things that we can use to make that sort of hybrid dance a lot more effective. And I was going to show you some of that stuff.
Cool. Love to see it.
All right, let's jump into the Visual Studios. Let me know when my screen is on.
It is on.
Okay. So as Robert, you were mentioning, Visual Studio looks pretty small. Do you want to like zoom in a little bit? No, I don't want to zoom in right now because we're not going to look at the code and we're not going to look at the project. That's not the point of what I'm about to do here. So, but I'll promise you, Robert, I will zoom in when we need to be look at some details. Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So this is what my Visual Studio looks like, let's say, on my laptop. And that's great when I'm in the office. I can code. I have my error list, my output down here. So I have a relatively small screen. So I want those to be kind of minimized by default like this. So this is my sort of my window layout is what it's called. The way I have my windows. Notice over here, I got Solution Explorer, my Git Changes window, and then I have like an extension here for developer news as well. And then at the bottom, I have my output window and my error list. And that's it. That's all I need from like a default, let's start the day window layout. But then sometimes I do something else. I do write Visual Studio extensions. And then I want my layout to look a little bit different. So I just did something and you don't know what it is, but I just hit a keyboard shortcut. And now my error list is always visible down here. And if we look at the bottom corner here, we can see I now have, instead of news, I have what's called the known monikers explorer down here, which shows me some icons in Visual Studio. And these are things I use when I do development for Visual Studio extensions. I'm going to hit another keyboard shortcut. And that's going to give me Task Runner Explorer. That's when I do web development, because I'm also a web developer, so I do that from time to time. And I want my Task Runner Explorer to be visible. And so I can go in between these different layouts. That's my default layout. Here's my extension layout. And here's my web development layout. So that's really cool. I can sort of optimize Visual Studio's window layout to my different scenarios, depending on what I work on, right?
Yep.
But let's say that, okay, that's cool. But now I'm moving from just a laptop or just one single monitor to multiple monitors, or in my case, a ultra wide monitor. What can we do there? Well, we can do similar things. So let's go back to my default right here. So I might want to have something like my Test Explorer always visible like this. I might want to have my output window always visible like here.
Mm-hmm.
And some people, they do like to have here's where I like to keep my properties window. I keep it on the side because I always close out of it. I don't really use it all that often. So I have it on the side, but some people like to have it underneath the Solution Explorer, right? So right here. So let's say that's your default layout. Let's say you have a big screen. You want your Test Explorer to be on a separate window, or, like if you have multiple monitors, but if you have a big screen, you may want to dock that to the side like this. You may want to say, hey, I want to put what else can we put? My live unit testing window, I want sort of in the same place over here. So you can do like sort of a vertical stacking here. Mm-hmm. Actually, I want to put my output window over here. Okay, interesting. And so I still have my document in here, but now I can, imagine you had a wide monitor. You can kind of build Visual Studio out to be wider and wider, and say, okay, I want to save this, so I can, like, just with a keyboard shortcut, activate this particular view when I am, let's say, in the office where I have a wide monitor. So I can go up to the top level menu, up to the window menu here, and say Save Window Layout. And we can just give it a name. Let's just call this one a Toolbox and hit OK. So now I'm going to go back to my default layout. It was right here. So now I can go to Window. I can say Apply Window Layout. And there's one down here called Toolbox. Click that. And boom, it's all back to what I just did.
Yep. Now this is a brand new feature in that internal preview you're using, right?
No, this was something that was introduced a while ago. And so I would say for anyone listening right now, it's probably guaranteed that you have this feature. I don't remember if it was 2019 or 2017.
I think it might have been 2015. I think it's...
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it was older than 17, but it's no later than 17. I think it was even earlier than that.
So this is an example of one of those features that is not new, but we know that a lot of people don't know about it or not using it. And to me, that's very puzzling because I use it all.
I've known about it for many, many, many years. And every time I see somebody use it, I go, oh, I need to do that. And I write myself a little note to do that.
Yep.
And I don't necessarily always do it.
I know. I'm addicted to it. But I also move a lot between the different. So back when I just had a laptop, I would actually use it as well for when the difference between me working on an extension or working on a web project, I would have these different layouts. And so I would still use it even if I just had one sort of screen that I was always using.
Yeah. And I think it's really handy if you have multiple screens, the idea of taking all those windows and moving them onto your second screen or something, and then just saving the layout so you always force yourself to do it.
Yep. And here's a little trick. So a lot of people don't know this, but let's say you have multiple monitors, you can actually detach your different tabs here and put them together. So now I have Visual Studio right here, and I have detached my documents, and I can put them on a different monitor, right? So you can mix and match all these different windows in Visual Studio on different monitors to exactly the layout that you want.
Yep.
So that's really cool. Here's something that some people do. So if you go in here and open a file, let's say you have a very wide monitor, you can open two. So now you have two files open, but you actually want them side by. Let me do a code file here instead of the design file. This one. So you can actually go up here and say create new vertical document group. So now you can have multiple documents open side by side. And so I've seen people have like 3 or 4 next to each other. So you can get these ultra wide monitors that are like 49 inches wide. They're like extremely wide. Mine is not one of those. I don't have room in my garage for like that wide. Mine is only 34 inch. So you can imagine if you have a 49 inch, we're talking like, I don't know, 4 feet wide, 5, like over a meter wide, right? A meter.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever. So you can really optimize for these different vertical document groups here. And if I open another file, let me just open one here. It opens in whatever one that was last, and you can move back and forth, whatever you see fit. Mm-hmm. So super handy, super duper handy. And oh, by the way, if you're using an extension, I'll talk about this extension later on if we have a moment. But there's an extension that gives you this. If you right-click any file in Solution Explorer, you can say open to the side. And when you do that, it automatically opens for you. Basically what it does is that it opens the file like this, and then it goes up to window and say new vertical document group. And it does that. It just does that for you. So it makes that super easy.
Mm-hmm.
So
what extension is that?
It's an extension called Tweaks.
Tweaks. Okay.
Just for both 2019 and 2022. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty cool.
Here's an interesting question from we got. How do these work on Visual Studio for Mac?
No, this is just for Visual Studio.
Okay. Do you know off the top of your head if this type of functionality is coming to Visual Studio for Mac?
No, I don't know. They might. I don't know. Yeah.
All right.
Sorry. Yeah, and they're also saved. These they're called. So these window layouts. I have quite a few, right? So you saw some of them when I opened I have a list here of multiple ones, and some of them are specifically for like ultra wide that I use sometimes. Actually, all the time, but they are roamed with your settings. So let's say that you have to set up a new machine and you sign in with your Microsoft account into Visual Studio on that new machine. Well, these profiles will roam, is what we call roam. So that means they go across all your different Visual Studio installations. So that makes it really handy. All right, so here's a thing that is also, it's newer, but it's not new, even though we do have some updates to it that are very new. But I'm gonna just open a few files here. There we go. I'm gonna move this one over here. So, Robert, when we have these wide screens, or if we have multiple monitors, depending on how we want to set things up, often we find ourselves in a situation where we have more need for vertical space than horizontal space. And so the fact that we have the tabs up here, it would be kind of nice if I could move the tabs to the side. And that way I can see more lines of code, right? I get some vertical space back. So I can right-click any tab that's open and go down and say set tab layout and say place tabs on the left or on the right. Let's put them on the left. So now they're over here and they're grouped by the project that's open. That's really handy.
Yeah.
And you can change that. So I don't want any grouping. I guess it already was grouped here in this case. But you can change all these different settings for tabs right up here. So very, very nice. But of course, we can also colorize the tabs. So if we say set tab color, we can give it whatever color we think is the appropriate color, which is kind of nice. and we can colorize them by file extension or whatever it is. So this is just really, really nice. We have them now split up. So if you have multiple projects open in your solution, these tab groups will automatically come in as your different projects. So you can very easily see what files you have open from different projects. It's really, really handy. So it's not just about taking your tabs and getting some extra lines of code back by removing them from the top and putting them on the left or the right. It's also you get extra features on those tabs, such as the different colors and the different groupings. And it's, again, if you have a wider monitors or multiple monitors, this is an absolute lifesaver.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So, but when I'm using my laptop, I really prefer them to be on the top like this. I'm also just a creature of habit. Like, this is the way it's looked for me for many, many years. But as soon as I switch to my ultra wide, I have them on the side. Boom.
Yep. Yeah, and then as you showed earlier, you can have various layouts. This is the layout on my small portable machine. This is the layout on my home bigger machine. This is the layout when I have one monitor. This is the layout when I have two monitors. There is a limit to the number of layouts you can create, but you could certainly say, oh, I'm on my portable laptop that I take to the coffee shop. So set up Visual Studio for me. Oh, I'm back home with my two 40-inch monitors. Just set it up for me. It's really cool.
Yes, I very much agree. It's a fantastic experience.
That's like memory seats in your car.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. That's a perfect analogy. That's a perfect analogy. You get into your car, you hit your button, and you get your leg room and all that sort of stuff to your specifications. Yeah. But that's not the only thing we can do. So I think that was sort of the monitor setup and the window layout that we can do and really optimize for. Another thing we can optimize by customizing Visual Studio are the menus. And so I often, when I talk about customization, right, some people call it personalization, customization. It's kind of the same thing for me, at least. But the way I see it is like Visual Studio is the one place that we're in Visual Studio for like 8 hours a day. Right?
Yeah.
It's basically our home, and a place you spend that much time in has to feel like a home. So you want to make sure that it does that. And just like your actual house or apartment or wherever you live, you might have an opinion about the color of your walls and whether or not you have carpets or hardwood floors and all these different things, right? Visual Studio for me is very much the same. I want to customize it and make it mine to where I'm most productive and most happy.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of people, that means like getting the right theme. So this is the blue theme. I kind of like the GitHub extension pack or the theme pack from GitHub. And I can make Visual Studio look exactly the way I prefer it to look. I think there's a lot of fantastic themes out there. Let's say there's some really, I like the solarized. Let's do the solarized dark, and I'll do the solarized light. Absolutely gorgeous. I think my favorite light is actually, the solarized light. So what's really cool is that Visual Studio ships with like 2 themes or 3 themes: light, dark, and blue. Blue is the default.
Right. Yep.
But you can go out and you can install like a bunch of other themes so you can make Visual Studio look exactly the way you want it to. And what's really cool is that the team did earlier, like last year, they wrote a utility that allows you to convert a Visual Studio Code theme to Visual Studio.
Ooh.
So a lot of people have done that and published those extensions out to the marketplace. So if we go look online, this is the extension manager dialog here. Go under tools, I can go down and click themes. And there's quite a few themes here I can choose from, right? Quite a few, and I already have a bunch of them, but
yeah,
it's very easy to install and enjoy new themes. And a really nice thing is, people have been asking for this, is they want Visual Studio to follow them like through the daylight. They want a lighter theme, and at night they want a dark theme. And so you can actually make Visual Studio follow sort of the sunset, sunrise.
Oh,
because you can make Visual Studio theming follow Windows theming. So windows you can set up to be automatically changed from light to dark mode depending on sunrise, sunset. And if you go in and you choose themes for Visual Studio and you go down to use system settings.
Okay.
When you do that, Visual Studio will automatically switch to light theme whenever Windows switches to light theme and to dark theme respectively.
Yeah. Okay.
Isn't that nice? So I really like that. So back to blue theme here, which is the default, which I actually will say that it is one of my absolute favorites too. I really like the blue theme.
Yeah, that's what I use all the time.
Okay. So it's not just me. The dark themes. People are all about the dark themes though.
Yeah, a lot of people like the dark theme.
There's one called Dark Plus. So it's like extra dark maybe. Yeah. Like, so let's see. This is Dark Plus. Let's just contrast that with dark. See what the difference is. Dark. Oh, it's kind of more
dark. Looks darker.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go back to blue. So yeah, so definitely worth checking out. But you might have noticed once the way I opened the extension manager. I'm gonna do it again. I click this button right here.
Oh.
Okay.
Yep.
Robert, you don't have that button, do you?
No, I don't.
Okay. So it turns out that you actually do. You just don't know about it. So
what? There's a button in the toolbar that I don't know about?
Yeah. John. So at all the toolbars, at the very end of them, they have like this little chevron. If you click that, you can say add or remove buttons.
Yep.
And by default, authors of these toolbars, they add a bunch of stuff in here that you might need that they feel are relevant to this toolbar. This is the standard toolbar. So this is what the Visual Studio team at Microsoft decided they think is relevant for a standard toolbar for you to choose which ones you want. I have removed a bunch of these. A lot of them are actually not even on by default, but you can very easily access them in here. And let me go back here. So let's just add some. So I'm going to add the two first ones here. Can you look on the screen to the upper right? You can kind of see how that changes as I'm doing this. The toolbar expands. So super easy to go add and remove. And if we go down to the bottom of this list, and you have this, Robert, you have this thing called Manage Extensions.
Yeah, cool.
It's just not on by default. So you just click that on, and then it gets in there. But I'm an extension buff, right? I love extensions, so I have it here because I use it all the time. Another thing I use all the time is this one. I click this button, and it opens Tools Options.
Yeah, that's nice.
Isn't that nice?
Yep.
I feel like we should have that by default. But the thing is that it's not in that list by default. So let's see how I can add any command from anywhere in Visual Studio, any other menu, any place in Visual Studio, I can add to this toolbar. In fact, not just toolbars, but I could I could add it to the file menu up here if I wanted to, like the options. So to do that, I'm going to go again in this menu after each toolbar. And then at the bottom, at the very bottom, it says Customize.
Customize.
And clicking that brings up this thing.
Yep, that's everything Visual Studio can do, right?
Yep. So you can see here I can change menu bars, and then I can choose which one. Like they're all here. There's a lot of them. Or I can do toolbars, and I can even do context menus. Okay. So let's say the context menu is the right-click menu. So what should show up when you right-click a solution or a project?
Yep.
So, but in this case, we're talking about the standard toolbar. Then I can come in here and say add command. And that brings up a list that has every single command.
Right.
And so what I did, I went down and I found tools. And then, because tools is my top level menu up here. So see how some of these are direct mappings. And I can go down and find options. It's alphabetical. So I'm going to go down. Where is it? There it is. Options. So I already did this, but this is how I did it. And then I clicked OK. And that put options in here. And I can then move it up and down, which changes its location. And so now I can fully customize and get rid of things I don't need in the view to reduce the noise, and add the things that I use all the time.
Right.
Yeah. So to me, that's actually a big deal. But I could have done something else, because if I were to go to Tools Options in here, notice how Tools Options, if I show you this Code Snippet Manager, it actually has a keyboard shortcut. You can see that it has a keyboard shortcut in the menu, and you can see Tools Options does not. So I could say, well, instead of me modifying the standard toolbar, what if I instead just added a keyboard shortcut to it? So to do that, I can go to Keyboard, and I can start searching for available shortcuts. What could that be? Control K, Control 1, Control K1. Okay. And let's assign it to options, not debug options. Let's see if there's one called test up tools options. I want to assign Control K, Control 1. Done. So now, if I go to tools, you can now see that I have the keyboard shortcut associated with this particular command.
Yep.
And so let's try it. Control K1. Boom. So I can really go in here and make Visual Studio super optimized for me, right? And I customize and personalize it to exactly my need. And there's some people that are super, what are they called? Like, they just want sort of this Zen mode where they don't have any toolbars or anything at all. Well, if you don't have any of that, if you want to get rid of this toolbar, you can do it like this. You get, now it's all about the code. But if you have those keyboard shortcuts, you can still access those commands that you use all the time. Right?
Well, the one that I did, and we did this live during the Dev Intersection talk, was what I find a lot is I do a lot of XAML, and I want to be able to comment and uncomment XAML code, and it's somewhere in the toolbar, but I can never find it. And I spend a huge amount of time, and I don't remember keyboard shortcuts. Yes. So what I did was I added it to the right-click menu. So now in my Visual Studio, if I highlight some XAML code, right-click, there's comment and uncomment at the top of the list.
Yes.
Which just saves me immense amounts of time and is very, very cool. And
absolutely
it was very easy to set up. Yep.
Comment, uncomment. You took these two and moved out.
Yep. And now when I highlight XAML, right-click, they're at the very top of the context menu. It's so cool.
Right-click inside the file, they're going to be right up here.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
It's awesome.
Yes. I love it.
And the thing was, I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be a feature request. I got to send it in the developer community and see if other people want it. And you said, no, why don't you just add it yourself? I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. Did you and I talk about this? I think we did, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Yeah. People just really don't know some of these things. And it's great to see, like, as the awareness grows with these things, that people utilize them and they get even happier. It's all about developer happiness. At the end of the day, we want to be productive and happy. And usually those two things are related, right?
Yep.
So you just mentioned something interesting. So developer community. Let's go to the help menu. And if we see what's in here for a moment. If you run into an issue, Robert, and we do from time to time, Visual Studio hangs or something, you can actually go in and report a problem right here.
Yep. Or suggest a feature.
Or if there's a feature that you feel is missing, go and suggest it. Okay. So what's really cool, let's talk about report a problem. What's really cool about that is that it opens a web page and signs you in with whatever you were signed into with Visual Studio. I have multiple accounts here. And it allows you to enter everything right here. Search for titles, see if there's duplicates, so on and so forth. But look at this, additional attachments. It automatically ships with or sends in a bunch of logs and traces and all this sort of stuff, which means that we're better equipped to actually see what the issue was and fix it. And so I'd highly encourage you to get the most out of Visual Studios, that if you run into issues, report them. Tell us about them. We get around 3,000 tickets every month, whether a mix of feature requests and bug reports. And we fix about 600 to 800 per update to Visual Studio. So that's a lot. Like we fix a lot of these, so there's a good chance that either that the bug report you want to report has already been reported, and you can just kind of come in and vote for it. So like let's say that debugger hangs. I don't know what we're going to find here. This one. This one was actually a duplicate of something else. But let's say here you can come in. You can actually just open this and vote for it. And you can also attach your logs to an existing ticket to give even more data to the team on how to reproduce and fix the issue. So make sure you take advantage of this. And another aspect of this is explore feature requests. So this one takes us to the exact same place. And leave. And in here, you can start searching for something.
So look up like the IEnumerable visualizer, for example.
IEnumerable?
Yeah.
How do you think?
Look, IEnumerable visualizer should not be modal. Who submitted that?
I don't know. Here, add export to CSV support. This is actually already done. Export to Excel up here.
Yeah, look at the one above it, though. Oh, that was me. And it's under review. So I'm not bragging about me, but I love that window, but it's modal. So you can only look at one collection at a time. And I thought, sometimes I want to be able to look at multiple ones. So it should not be modal. So who do you talk to? Well, I'm talking to the team.
Developer community.
They said, we'll think about it. So that's cool.
This goes straight to the program manager of that team that has to do with the debugger. So this goes straight to Harshita, who's the debugger PM.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So I will.
Everybody watching this should go vote for it.
Yes. So what you do is that you come in here. You can just vote. I'm going to vote for you, Robert.
Thank you.
Boom. There you go. Thank you for voting. Right. Or you can say go to details and discussion. So if you want to add comments in here or something like that, you can go and do that. So I highly encourage anyone to go to developercommunity.visualstudio.com. You can come in. You can, search. You can just find feature requests. You can say, show me the open ones. Go through them and vote. And the more votes they have, the clearer signal we have that it's something that you want prioritized. And that's going to help us decide what features we work on next. So I can't stress enough how important this is. Okay. So speaking of the help menu, notice this. So we actually changed the help menu not long ago, and we now have this thing called My Subscription. Robert, do you have a subscription to Visual Studio?
I have at least one.
At least one.
I have multiple, I think.
That's not what I want. If you click it, you go to my.visualstudio.com.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't know about my.visualstudio.com, but that's kind of where you can get everything that is associated with your subscription. But you know what's the crazy aspect? Like this, why I asked you, Robert, if you have a subscription or not?
Mm-hmm.
It's because most people don't know if they have a subscription.
Right.
If you're employed by, let's say, a big company, your employer has subscriptions for you, and subscriptions are always personal, but they give one to you. It's probably associated with whatever email address you sign into Visual Studio with, like your company email address. So if you go to my.visualstudio.com, you can see what kind of subscriptions you've got. And you can see mine here in the dropdown. I just have one for the account that I'm logged in with, and it's Visual Studio Enterprise FTE, full-time employee. So this is my employee benefits, okay? My subscription here, which is not, yours is going to be different. You might have an enterprise subscription or a professional subscription or a developer essentials subscription, which is a free one.
Yeah, I have a Dev Essentials and an enterprise that is part of the alumni program.
Okay. And you get $150 worth of Azure credits every month. You get a bunch of things. And these are all different depending on what kind of subscription you have. But you can see all this different stuff you get. And you can go to downloads and download different software. So this is for you, those of you who remember MSDN subscriptions and you had the MSDN subscriber downloads. Well, the MSDN subscription just changed its name to Visual Studio subscription like years ago. But most people don't know that. So if you have a Visual Studio subscription, good chances are you have what's the old MSDN subscription benefits as well. So you can come in and download pretty much everything, all software Microsoft has done, SQL Server, Windows, Office, whatever. And there's product keys for all of it, so that you can use them all legally and sign in and all this sort of stuff. So you get that for free. So go check out my.visualstudio.com. You might have things there that you didn't even know about that you will enjoy. So check it out. But you knew about that. Is that right, Robert?
Yes, I did know about that.
Did you know that you were going to get the downloads too?
I did. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I've taken advantage of them.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's why they're there. We want people to take advantage of them. You know, typically you might want to set up a new machine for work, and you're like, oh, should I install SQL Server? Should I get the SQL Server Express, the free one, or should I get the big one where I can do all this work? Yep. And you're thinking, well, dealing with licenses, and now I have to ask my admin or team lead to do we even have a license that I can use? And it seems like it's expensive and annoying to ask. Well, go check my.visualstudio.com to see if you don't just get a product key from there and install and download everything from there. So, yep.
All you got to do is log in.
Yes. All right. I do have a few extensions that people might want to see.
It wouldn't be a Mads show without showing off extensions.
Yes. So let me compile.
After all, the extensions king.
So let me compile this project here. This is just a basic extension project. It doesn't matter what kind of project it is. Look at this nice colorization I get in the output window here.
Ooh.
Isn't that nice?
Ooh.
If there were any errors in here, they would show up red, or warnings would be yellow. So there's a couple of extensions out there that colorizes the output window, and they're all really, really good. This one is called VS Output Color, I believe. That's the one I like to use, but the other ones are as great as this one. But this is just such a nice thing. I can immediately see if something goes wrong or warnings or whatever. And if things keep just being green, and in this case, kind of gray, then everything is good. I can at a glance see if something is problematic. So that was a build. Let's build something else. Let's go to see the output. I didn't really get a lot of details. So let's see if we can get some more details from the build here. I'm going to build this again. Oh, let's do a rebuild. Now check out all the output I'm getting now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting way more details, like what is restoring, looking for conflicts of packages and blah, blah, blah. So more details. And I just changed this dropdown, output verbosity, from minimal to detailed. Okay. I'm going to go back to minimal like this. And if I were to build again, I could do a rebuild again. I get much less. I only get the stuff that I really care about, really, in this case. So that's coming from an extension. I had to go into tools, options, and had to find out where I would change the output. And, I've done it before, so I know where to look. It's somewhere under project system, under build and run here. Under build and run, and then you can change it in here. So if you don't know that, you don't know that, and it's hard to find. So putting it right there in the output window, that's pretty cool. So that's also the tweaks extension does that. What's really cool about tweaks is an extension that basically fixes up a bunch of paper cuts that you might have. So tweaks, I'm going to go to the extension marketplace. So tweaks does a bunch of different things. So it auto save documents and projects, which has now been built into Visual Studio, by the way, 2022, in the latest update. It maps some keyboard shortcuts. It does a bunch of things that are really, really helpful. So basically removes a bunch of paper cuts. And this particular extension, I really love it because the idea here for each of the features have all been taken from the developer community. So I've gone through developer community the website to see all the feature requests and figure out the ones that can be done by an extension. I've added them all into one extension called Tweaks.
Mm-hmm.
And so every single feature comes from a user request, a feature request from a user. And we are already seeing like several of them have been built in by now to the product. And so it's a nice thing to get, and hopefully all those features will be built in at some point, but you kind of get them here first and you can get them now.
Right.
So that was Tweaks. It was just one thing. I just showed one thing that was kind of visible here, but there are so many other things. Let me just see here. Oh yeah, yes. You've tried this, Robert. I'm gonna save you a headache that you've had your entire career without knowing it. So let's say I want to take this code right here.
Uh-huh.
I want to copy it and I want to send it in an email.
Yes.
You see how I'm doing the way I'm like selecting the text here? See how the indentation is wrong because I just want to select this.
Right.
So now if I send it in an email, I'm going to get like a weird formatted string that's basically going to look like this. Let's see. Something like this. It's all going to be skewed like this.
Yep.
That's not what I want. But that's how life has been up until this point, right? So what if I can take this and I'm just going to copy like I would normally. And let me open a notepad. I'm going to paste this in. Paste. Oh, here.
Ooh.
See that?
Beautiful.
It strips away the indentation that was just white space that wasn't needed. And it does that automatically. You don't have to call any special command. It's just anytime you copy something, it will copy sort of the right thing. That's also built into Tweaks.
Very nice.
And the same goes for if you haven't selected anything and accidentally hit Control-C. You know how it used to copy an empty line?
Oh, I hate that because it overwrites what you had.
It overrides what you have. So empty line, copy.
Yes.
So it fixes that too. So
nice.
Again, paper cuts, right? It takes all these small little paper cuts and handles them for you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the next extension is one called Add New Files. Okay. Well, add new files. What do you mean? I can already add a new file. I can just right-click my project, say Add New Item, and then go in here and go loading templates. That sometimes takes a little while. And then let's do it like a C# interface. So search for interface. There it is. And then I'm going to give it a name. Like let's call it ifoo.cs, right? ifoo. All right. So here I have my internal interface ifoo. First of all, internal, I always want this to be public, or most of the time. So that's kind of annoying. But that was some dance I had to do to just add a new file, right?
Yeah.
So let's delete ifoo. And instead, I'm not even going to select the project. I'm just going to, whatever file that's in the project is selected is fine. And I'm going to hit Shift F2. And this thing comes up. Add new file. So now I can say ifoo.cs. I'm going to hit Enter. Boom. It knew, based on the name ifoo, that this was an interface. Because that's the naming convention for interfaces. Wow. And it gave me a public interface. If I just wanted to get foo.cs, well, in that case, it's a class, right? Public class foo. So it knows the difference.
Nice.
If I've gone in and done something like package.json, that's something used for web development and stuff. It knows what that is and automatically scaffolds that out for me like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an empty file, right? And so I can even come in here and do a new folder. So I'm going to do, what do we call it? We call it dir/ibar.cs. And that's going to create a folder with my file in it. And because this file is now active, my cursor is over here. I'm writing. I'm going to just Shift F2 again and do, bar.cs. It knows to put it in that same folder as the document I'm currently editing is in as well.
Wow. Cool.
Or if I want to come in and say, hey, create 1.cs, comma 2.cs. I want more than one file.
Oh, nice.
So
here's a question.
uh-huh.
I need to work out how to get add new files to give me the new single line namespace on a class file. What do you got to say about that?
Yeah, I'm not sure how to do that.
Okay.
You can't do it from in here. Add new item class file. That it doesn't ask you how you want it. But I think
Okay.
actually it depends on your setting. It should do the right thing. I forget how to. It's under C#. That was a question from you or from the audience?
That was from the audience. Mab UK.
Okay. I forget where it is. But there's a way you can set it, and that should respect it, both in the extension I just showed you and in this.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, I didn't have a direct answer for that. So this extension is called Add New File. Add New File. All right. So here's another one. Markdown. You can't really do anything without Markdown these days, it seems. All projects have a readme.md, and Visual Studio doesn't have a way to give you like a good editing experience of Markdown. So here's Markdown Editor V2. So let me go up here and search for Markdown. Markdown Editor V2. There's also a Markdown Editor here. I wrote them both.
Mm-hmm.
So Markdown Editor 64-bit. That's basically just a 64-bit version of the Markdown Editor I wrote for Visual Studio 2017 and 2019. Whereas Markdown Editor V2 is a brand new one that's written from scratch specifically for Visual Studio 2022. That is the best one. So that's the one I recommend. This one still have a few features that the first one doesn't have, and that's why both are still there. But Markdown Editor V2, it gives you, you see here the full rendered, including like syntax highlighting, synchronous scrolling like this. It's really nice. This one also is pretty cool because this one, I can right click and say generate table of content, and boom. It just inserted a table of content based on the headers in my file. So this is, again, one that I hear from people all the time that they love, and they didn't know they wanted it until they used it. Mm-hmm. The add new file one I showed before, people say the same thing, except for that one. They say, I cannot use Visual Studio without it. And I agree. This is also the first one I install. The Markdown here is, I use Markdown all the time. So for me, it's also one that I install immediately when I get a new Visual Studio set up. And Robert, any questions?
Well, let's see. Will this be available for other languages too? This was back right before you were showing the Markdown.
Yes, add new file works for anything. It just, here, let me do something that give me a file like .robert. So foo.robert. In this case, there's not a language or whatever, so you just get plain text for .robert files, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this works with anything. The original name for this extension was add empty file. So you can add anything, and if it doesn't know what it is, it just gives you an empty file. Yeah, and you can just start typing. So it works with any language.
So what about headers and source files in C++?
Yeah, so if you want to do like foo.h, foo.cpp, so you can create both files like this. Cool. So you get a CPP and an H file, right? Mm-hmm. But it does not fill anything in. So if you think, hey, it would be nice to always have like a certain thing like that was for, like if you do C#, you automatically get like some using statements and namespaces and all that sort of stuff. If you want the same for CPP for and H files, please, it's super easy to see how to add these extra. They're like templates for those file extensions. They're super easy to add. Either go to the GitHub repository and add an issue for them, or just upload the files as a pull request. They're just text files, these templates that this extension uses. So we can really do kind of whatever here. And I take pull requests, so please go ahead. That would be wonderful.
Cool.
Yep. Anything else there?
Let's see. Open command line where the extensions Ragathian can't live without. Nice. I'm not seeing any other. Oh, can you publish the Markdown? Where'd it go? There it is, to a DevOps wiki.
If you can publish it to, I mean, I don't know how you normally publish to a DevOps wiki. If you do that through like an Azure pipelines kind of thing, then yeah, there's no like
nothing built in though.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay.
Like an Azure pipeline would do it for you, right? I don't know. Is that built in? Kind of the same way that GitHub Actions are built in. Like you can edit the YAML files and all this sort of stuff and get IntelliSense for it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's built in that sense, I guess.
Okay. Cool. That's the questions at the moment. You guys get any new ones?
Was that a question for me?
No new questions.
All right.
We are caught up.
So I hope that it was something that inspires you, the viewer, to like customizing and personalizing Visual Studio maybe a little bit more than you have today. Because for me, at least, it makes me a lot happier when Visual Studio is the exact way I want it. And I think we all feel that way. So I hope you found this helpful.
Is there anywhere where these types of customizations are written down well? I mean, is there documentation on them?
You know, they're kind of scattered a little bit in the different areas. I don't think we have like a specific spot for them just yet. One place that's good for like this type of tips and tricks and optimizing your Visual Studio for your own scenarios would be the Visual Studio YouTube channel. So if you go to youtube.com/Visual Studio, you can find there's some playlists. One of them is called Tips and Tricks, and there's a bunch of really good stuff in there. And we'll be adding more to that here very, very soon. I'm actually going to record some here in the next couple of weeks. So definitely check out youtube.com/Visual Studio.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we're actually going to finish on time.
That's impressive.
Thank you, Mads. Thanks so much for coming on. Thanks, you guys, for the good questions and the good conversation. And we will see you next time on Visual Studio Toolbox. Take care, guys.
See ya.